like this. For once I'm lost for words. Your smile has really thrown me. This is not like me at all. I never thought I'd know the kind of love you've shown me.
Jacques Guerlain's Mitsouko was born in 1919, 2 years after and in answer to Coty's landmark Chypre, which started a new family for fragrances. It is perhaps the most butch or masculine of all the Guerlain feminine fragrances, with a short formula of only 12 or 13 ingredients. The inspiration for the idea of Mitsouko was a romantic tragedy set in turn-of-the-century Japan during the Battle of Tsushima with Russia. It is named after the Japanese wife of an admiral who was involved in this battle, but at the same time she was in love with a British officer on the ship. During the course of the story, both her husband and her lover get killed, and she has to mourn the death of the two of them quietly. Well, going back to the notes, Mitsouko sings at the top with bergamot and asperidic notes, which duet with a molecule called gamma undecalactone, which imparts a peach-like aroma to the composition. It then blossoms a heart of Provence rose and jasmine, which mixes with spices like black pepper, cinnamon and cloves before flourishing a base of labdanum, patchouli, vetiver, oak moss and cedar. When I sample the parfum, which I have several bottles of, I get the impression of a lush jungle at the top, with notes that remind me of tree bark, and it has a very strong underlying mossiness, together with a damp, almost decaying aroma of leaves, which may be due to the oak moss, the vetiver or the cedar notes. It then goes into a heart which resembles candied fruit, but the sweetness of this fruit is tempered by the sharpness of bergamot and the presence of neroli. Let me summarize the impressions of each bottle chronologically. The pre-1950s parfum has a citrusy tartness at the top, which melds into a candied peach aroma with an underlying note that resembles cat urine. The 1970s parfum, on the other hand, has this damp, subdued mossiness that has a stronger note of decayed forest and earthiness about it. It is also more vegetal than the previous bottle. I also have a sealed 1980s parfum, which has a more bitter absinthe-like note and a bit medicinal to the nose. My 1980s parfum, which has this golden hue, and I have 2 bottles, including the one that I featured in my review last year, is the spiciest of them all, with the peach being extremely sharp and very penetrating. As for the next highest concentration, I have a modern eau de parfum to compare with a 1980s parfum de toilette. They are supposedly equivalent concentrations, but they are very different. This one has a glowing golden fruitiness, perfectly balanced with a ripe, decaying vegetation note, while this has a sharp asperidic fruitiness, which dissolves into a light cedary woodiness in the middle. It is interesting to note that this has been reformulated with tree moss, which replaced the oak moss, which was found to be sensitizing and was removed by IFRA regulations. So this one is much more mossy than this one, which is a little bit papery. The next lowest concentration is of course the Eau de Toilette, which I also have a 1980s bottle of. Now this one is much more transparent and a little bit more glowing, with no decaying vegetation note at all. It is just a light, airy, pleasant peachiness with a bit of woodiness. I also have the lowest concentration, which is no longer produced now, the Eau de Cologne, and this one has a much more candid and transparent quality to it, and it is surprisingly strong for an Eau de Cologne. It is very good for unisex wear, and it almost has an orangey and slightly fresh green quality about it. The Eau de Cologne is the sweetest and most luminous of all the different concentrations. Personally, I find Mitsouko to be one of the most enigmatic or mysterious perfume in the whole Guerlain lineup, especially this pre-1950s parfum. It surprises me every time I put it on with a different aspect. Sometimes deep, sometimes decaying, and sometimes candied fruity peach. It is one of the best fragrances in the world and one of the best amongst the cream of the crop, the house of Guerlain. As for where to acquire this baby, I would advise you to scout eBay auctions and not buy the current formulation because it has changed a lot. It is the difference between buying cheap $12 wine and expensive Pinot Noir. It's your choice.
I have never felt like this. For once I'm lost for words. Your smile has really